Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, trendsetters and sheep, cashed up supporters and cheapskate bastards of the channel. All welcome to Tuesday afternoon in the brewery, pre-Easter, or as we call it around here, the days of chocolate trials. Yep. One should never take chances with the quality and you know, the makeup of the chocolate that flows in at this time of the year from, well, it doesn't really matter where it flows in because we only buy one fucking kind of chocolate around here, and given the recent scare with Kinder Surprise, yeah, it's probably a fucking good reason for it. But anyway, Pre-Easter is on, chocolate trials are underway, which means I'm away next weekend. I'm going away on Thursday, so I'm just looking to get a few things squared away in the brewery before then. And one of those things is getting some gravity readings on this beer here. Now, given that little John, his infinite wisdom and desire to constantly change things around, keep you fuckers guessing what's going on, this is a beer I'm currently brewing that you're not going to know about for a couple of weeks yet. Because of the, glass from grain videos. Copyrighted and trademarked Little John's Brewing. Yeah, fucking, what that's going to happen. But no, this is the current batch of the Great Northern Clone trial. This will be the final version of this. Before I drop a recipe, I will finish this process and I'll be dropping the my finalised recipe onto the video and into the ethos of the brewing world. But right now I'm doing a gravity reading, a bit of a sampling, and as you can see, there's two glasses there. So there's got to be a reason for that. Yeah. Yes, Little John's quite common. Always doing split batches. That's nothing new. But what I'm doing on this one is I'm brewing half the batch with W34 70 and the other half of the batch with US-05. Yeah, that's nothing too far out of the realms of what you might expect Little John to do with a brew. Two different kinds of yeast. But what's different on this is I'm brewing both of these beers at 12 degrees, side by side in the ferment fridge at 12 degrees, and wanting to directly compare how that lager yeast, the lager temps, compares to, well, at the higher end of lager yeast, lager temps at the very least, and how the US-05 compares to it, done at the same temperature. So I've got the two beers here. We are, I believe, on day 5 of the ferment. I am just firing up the little box of information, and I'll get the brew father up and going and just confirm. I'm pretty sure it was last Thursday, which makes today day 5. Started on the 7th, today's the 12th. Yeah, so it's been 5 days sitting at 12 degrees. Excuse me as I have a beer. There we go. Mountain Culture Lager, one of the beers from the brewery of the month for this month, which again will be discussed in further detail down the track. But as I said, what I'm looking to do is get myself some gravity samples. Now, I got some 2 days ago. Actually, no, that was the 10th. Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah, Sunday. So I'm not going to discuss them just at the moment. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to, and this is a result of how that went the other day, I want to deoxygenate these. Well, not deoxygenate, so decarb. These are brewing under pressure. These beers are currently sitting both around 13-14 psi and have been for the last 2 days. Prior to that they were both sitting around 5 psi. And it's quite difficult to get an accurate hydrometer reading when you've got a beer that's fairly carbonated. So for anyone who doesn't know what this method is, or has not seen or heard of this method, it's basically just transferring your beer backwards and forwards from one glass to another, and knocking out the carbonation in the process. Now it takes a little while to do, so I'm not going to sit here and just do this constantly with you guys watching. I will do this over a little while and I will come backwards and forwards just to click in and see how we go. But the reason I really want to sit in and actually really knock the gas out of these properly is because, like I said, 2 days ago I took some readings. I thought there was only about 4 or 5 psi on both of these beers at the time, and actually it was probably more like 5 on this 3470 and about 3 on the US-05 version. And what I got was the gravity readings. Was the 3470 was showing a gravity of 1018, which is on, I think that was day 3 of the ferment. From a starting point of, I think it was 1043, that's a bloody big drop. I mean, that's in the realms of about 2/3 of the expected gravity drop. On a lager yeast, lager temp. I normally do my lagers between 9 and 11 degrees. I generally don't go outside of that. I'm not one for rushing a lager. I like to take my time with them and do them properly. So this is a little bit quicker than normal. So that sort of gravity drop in that time for me is very fast. So I'm just a bit concerned that perhaps there was a bit more gas in that sample than I thought, and I didn't get an accurate reading. The hydrometer was sitting higher than it should have, and therefore giving me a mucked up reading. So I want to knock the gas out of this and get a good indication of how it is. So got it out there a little bit. I mean, I'm going to keep doing this, but I'm going to give you a bit of a roll into exactly what it is that's going on. So this is the US-05, and interestingly, that head's dropped off that while we're sitting there fairly quickly before this did. But this fella on day 3 was at 1032, so it only dropped 11 points. And I've got to say, that's probably certainly more on target for where I would have expected. Basically it's dropped 30, it's dropped about 1/3 of its expected gravity drop. Quarter to 1/3, that sort of range, which is certainly more like I would have been expecting. So it's I'm interested to see where they're sitting now, 2 days later. As I said, I have ramped pressure up on both of these, and they've been sitting. They both prepped up to about 15. The US-05 prepped up to about 16 this morning. Yesterday they were on 13 degrees. They'd gone to 13 up till early yesterday evening, so that was about probably 24 hours since I'd cranked up the spunding valves. And so they're at 13 this morning. I come out The 3470 is sitting on 15, the US-05 is sitting on about 16. I've just released a little bit this morning just to bring it back down to that 13, 14 range, which is where I will want them before I cold crash, which is a little way off just at the moment. But I didn't want it too high because it's going to, at that range, certainly compress the ferment and slow it down, or I would certainly expect it to. Looking at the actual beers in the fermenter, and it's not really showing here. They look fairly similar in colour and opacity, but in the fermenter itself, the 3470 still looks a lot murkier and seems to have a lot more suspended yeast than the US-05 does, which seems to be a little bit clearer and seems to have a little bit less in suspension, which is interesting given that the 3470 is a bottom fermenting yeast and the A5 is top fermenting. I would sort of expect it to almost be the other way around. And given these numbers I got the other day, I certainly would have expected the other way around as well. But what that does say to me, aside from any of the numbers, just visually, is that the US-05 is certainly well restrained at that sort of temperature. Now, I've done the A5 at 12 degrees previously, end of last year on the summer ale to do the cold 05, and it worked fine. Made quite a nice beer, but as I said at the time when I did that, anybody, if you go back and watch the video and the tastings and stuff, I did question how it may have compared to, say, the A5 at 15 degrees, because I hadn't done a split batch on that, only done the one batch. It was basically, I think at the time, was a beer to fill a keg, and I wanted to knock out a quick experiment. So there was no comparison brew with that, and I didn't take a lot of notes and readings and stuff along the way. So I've trying on this batch to get a little bit more information as the ferment progresses, just to see how they're travelling. But again, it's going to be a little bit difficult because I'm going away Thursday, which means I will be raising the temperature to, I think it's 15 is the, yeah, it's booked in. It's booked in for 15. So we'll go to 15. We'll go to 15. I'm going to raise it for 3 days. That's basically a de-rest, and it's going to sit there for a week. So I'm not going to be able to get a progress marker as it goes, but I will certainly be hoping to try and to squeeze in before I disappear. I've got to work Thursday morning, do a shop to load the car up, and then get the car packed and be ready to pick Mrs. Littlejohn up at the drop of a hat when she's finished work, so we can get out of here and down the coast as far towards the coast as we can before nightfall hits and starts getting dark and murky, given we've got to travel a couple of narrow, poorly marked roads, and it's expected to be raining. So I will try to get another reading then before I go. If I don't, I don't. But these still look to be reasonably carbonated. So anyway, faffed on for fucking a little while. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let these go now for about probably half an hour or so. and I will come back over the next half an hour. I'll bang them backwards and forwards a couple of times and come back and we'll get some gravity readings and see how they're travelling. Rightio, we're a little bit into these. I'm thinking we've got a good whack of the gas out of them. Certainly enough, I think we're going to get a reasonably accurate reading. They're not completely flat, but still a bit of gas there, but nothing too much. So this is the 3470, which, as I said, seemed to be at 1018 2 days ago. And I'm going to call that 1012. 1012 today. So given that we've had an increase in pressure in the last 2 days, I would assume that you're going to say the 1018 was correct the other day. So that's interesting for me, because I think it sort of indicates two things. One, that 12 degrees is getting a little bit too warm for the lager, and it wants to ferment too quickly, because for me the reality is that's only 2 points off expected final gravity in 5 days. I would expect 3470 at normal temperature, say 9, even 10 degrees, that it would take at least 7 days and probably close to 10 or 11 to get down to that sort of position. And given that it's had that higher pressure on it for the last 2 days, I think it's just chugging along too quickly. And I think as a result you're going to lose a lot of the cleanliness that comes with lager yeast and fermenting at those lager temperatures, keeping it cool and fermenting slowly. So let's see where the 05 is sitting. I said the other day it was at 1032, certainly coming along a lot slower, and that's exactly what we expected to do. It's by all accounts at 12 degrees, significantly below its happy fermentation range. I have seen some comments from Safale. I can't remember where exactly it was, but I do remember some where they have commented that they believe it can work within its flavour parameters down to 11 degrees. So from that angle it's not necessarily out of its target, but they generally don't sort of throw that around too readily, that sort of a number. It's normally sort of 16, 15 is the lowest. If you don't want to just spin yourself around to where the numbers are, the numbers I want to read, not just fucking, there we go. Okay, I'm going to call that I call it 1026. So it's chugging along quite slowly, which is to be completely expected at 12 degrees. It's definitely at that lower end. So from that point, the 05 is doing pretty much exactly as I would expect it to do. It's getting the job done. It's getting a job done slowly, and I would say that realistically, I would still think that that's a tad slower than I would have expected the 3470 to be going if it was at down at 9 or 10 degrees. I would still think that a lager yeast 5 days in would have done more than 16 points of gravity. Not a hell of a lot, but yeah. So it's certainly for me, it seems to be sitting in that ballpark of similar timing. And as a given, I said there's that pressure on there, so that pressure is going to really slow it down as well. So I think those numbers are sort of in a range. Well, the US-05 is, I thought the 3470 would have been a little bit higher than that. I really thought it would have been closer. I didn't think that, you know, even just that 1 or 2 degree extra would have had that big of an effect. But as I said, it's only dropped 6 points in the last 2 days. So the pressure has certainly controlled it. And that's certainly something I want to look at in the future, is how actually running 3470 or any lager yeast, how running pressure, like, and I'm talking, you know, 13-14 psi of pressure, bottle carbonation type levels, how that affects the overall ferment, how much it does it slow it down, how much does it affect the actual the finished beer, how much cleaner can it make it. But right now, I said it's sort of indicating that the 12 degrees is a little bit too fast for it, but yeah, tasting is going to be the real tell, and tasting these right now is not going to give me anything, because I've just knocked so much oxygen into those beers. Just on that tasting, that's actually cleaner. That's actually got a really nasty fucking honey note to it, but I would expect that to clean up with the de-rest. But I said, can't take anything off those flavours right now, given all the agitation they've been through, and I'm not going to pull the connectors and hoses back out and take another sample off just to taste it. I'll leave that for further down the track. So this is more about just how that progress is going. So that's where it is. So the 05's ticking along, and from what I can tell, seems to be doing the job. It's doing it slowly, but that's, you know, exactly where we expect it to go. So as I said, it's dropped 16 points out of a total of 32 points. So it's halfway there in 5 days. I think that's quite an acceptable sort of a ferment rate. 3470 is all but done. And realistically, I'd be surprised if it's not at final gravity on Thursday when I bump to a de-rest. But yeah, obviously the test is going to be where they finish up at, and how they taste once they've fermented properly. Yeah, and had a couple of weeks in the bottle to condition. So guys, that's it. Last video before Easter. I will not be uploading anything over the Easter break. I'll be away for a week. I am planning at the moment, or I'm pretty much locked in, I'll be going to Seeker Brewing, which was Grassy Knoll, which was below Brewing Company in Unanderra down there in the Gong. So if anybody's watching us from the Gong and would like to join me in a tap dance at the at Seeker Brewing in Unanderra. Address, oh god, I should have checked this up quickly, but I think it's Investigator Drive. Let me just get a bloody Unit 4, number 1, Industrial Road, Unanderra, or for people who aren't from Wollongong and can't pronounce stuff properly, Unanderra. So yeah, anybody wants to join me? Yeah, come along. Have a few beers and another, I said, possibly a tap dance. No guarantee on the tap dance, but you never know your luck. But that's yeah, that's what's going on. So guys, girls, hims, shims, they, thems, whatever you are. Have yourself a bloody wonderful Easter. Enjoy chocolate day. And I'll see you back here after the break, when we'll be, I don't know, we'll be brewing beer, drinking beer, talking beer. Until then, good brewing.